Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Parsons. I'm coming to you from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's webinar in which we are going to be talking about sheep genetics USA and improving your flock through genetic information and using genetic tools to enhance profitability. This webinar is brought to you by the American Sheep Industry Association and their Let's Grow initiative. We want to thank them for their support and encourage you to visit the ASI website to learn more about the sheep industry and to access the large volume of resources available there to help you be successful in the sheep business. Their website URL is www.sheepusa.org. If you are not currently a member of the American Sheep Industry Association, I'd like to encourage you to become one. Most people do that by joining their state sheep association. A list of the contact people for those associations is available on the ASI website under the contacts link. There's also a join link at the top of the page where you can read more about the association activities and the benefits of membership. I'd like to remind everybody that we are recording this webinar. The recording will be available for viewing later. All webinar registrants will receive an email within the next 48 hours with a link to that webinar recording, in which you can access it and watch it at your leisure. Those links are also posted up on the ASI website under their resources tab in their educational materials. So we have a little bit of a unique webinar here from what we've done in the past. Happy to see that we have our four gentlemen all on. It took a little while with our technology to get everybody connected. They're all coming from different locations, but the Sheep Genetics USA group is just starting out. And so we're gonna have Tom Boyer start us off, telling you guys a little bit about it, and then we'll turn it over to the other speakers to each say a few words about their involvement in it also. So Tom, I think you're coming to us from Utah. We also have Ben Lefelt up in Montana, Rusty Burgett out in Iowa, and Brad Boner, normally in Wyoming, but he's going to be coming to us from a motel room in South Dakota this evening. So Tom, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and tell folks about Sheep Genetics USA.
Okay, Jay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the webinar tonight. And on behalf of the Board of Directors of Sheep Genetics USA, I welcome everyone on board and appreciate your being in attendance tonight for this event. We're excited to present to you our organization and the way we've put it together and what our hopes and dreams and vision are for it as we move forward. So folks, if you would go with me for a few moments here, ponder for a few moments what you think the sheep industry of the United States will look like in 2031. In 1942, we had 55 million sheep in this country. Today we have 5 million. How many will we have in 2031 or 2035? What types of operations will we have? Will there be more intensive operations, or will there be more extensive operations? What will the segments of our lamb market look like? Today we have a variety of segments there, from non-traditional to the traditional market channels that we have operated through for years. We're seeing changes in these segments. What will those segments look like in 10 years? Will our sheep be the same percentage of wool, or will there be more hair sheep? What will this industry look like in 10 or 20 years from now? And how do we get from where we are today to where we want to see it in that 10, 20-year period? How do we get there? America wants our story. Will we have a story worth telling to them? Well, Sheep Genetics USA, we believe that the future is ours, and genetics is the foundation to that future. We think that technology, data, and management will create the sheep of 10 years from now. And we're excited about the possibilities that that holds for the future. Will there be some disruptive technology? Yes, we believe so. That's happening all across our economic front today. At the height of its glory, AOL, which was the original email group, one of the originals anyway, was worth $125 billion. Last week, in a little quiet hand-me-off sale, AOL and Yahoo sold for $5 billion. When many of us were younger, 20 years ago, if we had a heart issue, it was open heart surgery. Today, many of those heart issues are covered with stents, as cardiologists have now taken over from open heart surgeons in many cases. We see some of those same kinds of disruption taking place in the sheep industry. Folks, one recent study indicated that 28% of the black-faced rams that are purchased in October or the fall are dead in 6 months later. How successful would iPhone be with those same kinds of statistics? Change is hard. It's uncomfortable going to a new place. And it's not an easy process to come together to make that happen. Can we see the future segments of this industry? Do we have that vision? Do we have that that concept of what it might look like, what we'd want it to look like going forward? What will the lamb of 2031 need to be like to be competitive with the other meats, with the other lambs across the world that are imported? How can we become more competitive? How can we make those needed changes to make this happen? Well, our quest at Sheep Genetics USA is we have a quest to pursue the perfection of the American lamb. And folks, that starts with genetics. That is the foundation of this industry. That is the place where we can start making those changes that will lead us into the future. We are indeed pioneers for that 10-year window or the 20-year window that lies ahead of us. And in order to get there, in order to build that bridge to the future, we need to ask some questions that are what if or why not? How can we make those changes? What if we tried this strategy? What if we took a look at this kind of research and this kind of study to improve the lamb of tomorrow, to improve our genetic base for tomorrow? Why not try some of the strategies that have been developed in the past or are currently being developed? How do we implement some of these disruptive strategies that will help us, some of these new research methodologies that will help us get there, given an ever-shrinking pool of funds available for such projects? One of the things we believe is more on-farm research projects that are overseen by these exciting young research scientists that we have, and our extension people that we think have great promise for the sheep industry in the future as they assist us in this move forward. If we are indeed pioneers of the future, what kind of a bridge can we build? How can we get there? The easiest way, the quickest way, the most effective way? Well, one of the things that we believe is that our vision is based on alacrity. Folks, we have a white heat passion for the future of this industry. We've got a burning desire to make the lamb of tomorrow competitive with every other red meat, with every other lamb on the planet. That our U.S. lamb can be fully accepted by every consumer as having a quality that is unequaled, that is uniform in its quality, it's uniform in its taste, it's uniform in its presentation, in terms of the way it leaves our producers. And we believe that all starts with genetics. We believe that that is the future. That is where we can make those changes. We will never be any better than we are with our genetics. So, what will the sheep industry look like in 10 or 20 years from now? Come and join us. Let's create it. Let's make that happen. We can't afford to wait and be acted upon by other countries or by other forces or by other enterprises that create other meats for the American consumer. We need to take the lead and create that product today. And that's our goal, that's our vision. And on behalf of our board of directors, I invite you to come and join us. We have the teams that are now going to be presented to you and our structure by my fellow board members. And so I welcome Ben Lafelt, Brad Boner, and Rusty Burgett to the panel portion of this presentation tonight. And each of them can pass along their thoughts, their vision, their ideas, their goals for the organization. And then we will welcome comments and questions from you folks, which Jay will then pass along for our panelists to answer. And for any questions that don't get answered, we will cover those by email back to you after the presentation is over. So with this in mind, I'll turn it now to my fellow panelists to take over and charge on with this webinar.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And I failed to mention it before, but as you don't have to wait till the very end to ask questions, but we'll pool them together at the end. There is a question box on your control panel, and feel free to type questions in there at any time. Ben, do you want to go next? I'll go ahead, and Ben has a few slides. Ben Lafelt, he's coming to us from central Montana. He's like a 5th generation, if I remember correctly, sheep rancher up there. Currently Secretary Treasurer for ASI, I believe. And so Ben, you should got a link that comes over so you can share your screen.
Yep. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I'm coming from Lavina, Montana. We're just starting to kind of get on the tail end of our lambing here. So it's been a busy month. We could use some rain, which I'm sure a lot of you could do the same too. So I'll get the screen up here. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Maybe I'll have to reboot a little bit here, but should come up. Can everybody see my screen?
There you go. We see the Sheep Genetics logo.
Okay. So Tom, really gave the 30,000 foot level information there. I'm going to go through a little bit of the nuts and bolts, and then let the other two talk about some things. I'm going to kind of go over kind of what we have put together this past year, and really what we're doing is trying to create a communication network across the industry to make sure we're prioritizing the right research projects, things that are important to the industry and come from a grassroots level. We've got a great group of researchers in the country right now. We've got extension specialists. The big thing is tying everything together. So it's important that as we move forward, that's what we try to do. And what we need for that is your involvement and your membership. So as we go through tonight, one of the things we're looking for is making sure we have everybody represented in our membership at sheepgeneticsusa.org. You can sign up, it's free, and we'll start getting these grassroots committees really moving forward. Jay, can you see that screen then?
We could see your slides. Do you want to go into presentation mode?
Yeah.
I think you're down the lower right there.
Right
there
here.
You go. if it'll pop up here.
Yeah. There it goes, maybe. Going a little slow. So as Tom mentioned, we're really trying to put together.
We can see it now. You're in presentation.
Got her good. Okay. So this little slide presentation, and then I'll go over some of the nut and bolts of the committees that we have set forward and kind of give you an idea where we're at within this. So really, this Sheep Genetics USA is built upon the successes that we had in Let's Grow, built upon some of the things we've done that Rusty and some of the people at SIP have done, taking that big picture ideas and trying to understand how we move forward as an industry with a collaborative approach. So it's really based upon the forward thinking of each individual in the industry, and we want to make sure that we represent everybody. So historically, there's been slow uptake of genetic improvement in our industry. I think we're behind in a lot of cases, and if this isn't the right product, the right organization for moving us forward as soon as we can, we need to figure out what's the best way forward. So we based this upon some initial initiatives that from other industries. So the Beef Improvement Federation, Meat Livestock Australia, Sheep Genetics USA Australia, were things that we looked at to kind of base some of this Sheep Genetics USA formation. And ultimately, a better utilization of our finances to help leverage those genetic and genomic and other research projects that are really important to the industry. See if we can advance the slide. Going a little slow. There we go. So our mission statement is advancing the U.S. sheep industry through genetic technology. And not everything that we talk about and not everything that we'll discuss in Sheep Genetics USA is going to be genetically research driven, but it will be, genetics is really the base, and that's what we've come up with to make sure that that everything is inclusive. But it's not necessarily all research projects aren't necessarily genetic, but it really is the base of all our involvement within the sheep industry. So the vision statement is Sheep Genetics USA is a proactive and collaborative initiative focused on improving genetic tools to enhance profitability through measurable goals leading to long-term success. So it's really, how do we drive ourselves forward? Our goal is to try to inspire producer adoption through education, ensure inclusiveness of all industry stakeholders, drive that research and development piece, and deliver tangible solutions leading to measurable results. And that gets back to what Tom was mentioning about on-farm type projects that really drive some of the research that's not only we're doing in the future, but that's already been done. So what I'd like to do now is just kind of break our organization up and then go through it for you. So I think we haven't had a chance to really sit one-on-one or face-to-face with a lot of you because of convention not being held this last year. So we want to get this message out as clear as we can. Some of you might have seen some of the presentations we did at convention. So this is a snapshot of a piece of that organization. And as I work through it, and at the end, you'll see how it all comes together. Right now, we've got membership, as I mentioned, at sheepgeneticsusa.org, where you can sign up. And then one of the things that we'll ask you is which committee, which grassroots committee would you like to be a part of to help us drive these initiatives that the industry really needs. So they broke these down into 6 different committees. We have an ALB consumer, which really is a link to our American Land Board, because we want to make sure we connect with all parts of our industry. Next is NSIP. This will be made up of people that are enrolled in NSIP and would like to use this as their platform for bringing ideas forward. Research, educators, and emerging technology. This is made up of a lot of our sheep extension specialists, some of our university, our ARS, our MARC, really the engines that drive a lot of research. And we feel like this organization can help tie that research that's going on or has gone on, and then help them in the future, maybe either on the financial side or even on the production and test marketing of different research projects that they have going on. Next is the seed stock and registry. So tying in all of our commercial and seed stock registers. The ASI and producer committee is made up of anybody really that's an ASI member that would like to be on this. And then lastly, and definitely just as important, the feeder and packer side. So this really, what we tried to do with these 6 grassroots committees is tie together the important parts of our industry and make sure that voices are heard from each of these, so we can bounce off ideas and make sure we're going down the right paths. So if you look at these 6 committees, there's going to be quite a bit of difference in potentially the membership within them, how they would be organized. So one of the important things of these different committees is the action leads. So right now we've got 5 of the 6 for sure nailed down, but one of the things we've done the past 2 months is try to identify, with the help of these committees, who our action leads will be for each of these. I'll just give you some examples. ALB Consumers, Carissa Isaacs has been approved as kind of our link to that ALB portion. And each of these action leads will be vitally important, as you'll see in the structure, to not only bringing different information and project ideas from the committee, but also bouncing those prioritized ideas off of all the other action leads in order to come up with the best route forward and the most logical route when we have our limited research funds for our industry. So each of these individual committees will have an action lead that is responsible for organizing the discussion within these committees, and also when they get those prioritized discussions, then they, in turn, you can see the link right now, they will connect with each other in a smaller group to really hash out, which things are most important to move forward with, whether it came from the seed stock committee, whether it came from ALB, whether it came from producer. This is really an important point to really hash through those research and important improvement ideas. These action leads will, like I say, meet together and formalize the project prioritization, and also in the end, develop some of the results implementation that may be needed for these projects. So as we move forward, these action leads will prioritize that formation and result implementation, and then deliver that priority to the individual directors of Sheep Genetics USA. What the directors, main foreman, and they are also part of the grassroots efforts as well, but they will help formulate where can we make the best headway in developing funding requests, or where are the logistics hard for this project compared to another project? How can we move forward? Do we have a researcher that can take this on? And then based upon those and the prioritization of the action leads from the grassroots committee, we're able to move forward with the projects and hopefully leverage the small amount of money that we may have into large amounts of money, because we have that collaboration effort across our sheep industry. So when there is an approved project, or even a project that is already in process right now, even before this structure was set up, one of the important parts of these committees is also to help communicate the project, communicate the research that's going on, or help even with the actual project. So this organization, the Sheep Genetics USA organization, really provides us with that communication method of distributing information about that research project and what each group can add to that project to really bring a good product to. So I mentioned before that I'd show you, this is the entire structure. I broke out those individual grassroots committees below those 6 committees. The board of directors is up there, and there's a lot of feedback mechanisms between them. So I broke down it individually, and this is how we see it right now as all working together to develop a communication link and to develop different projects that we hope are really important for our sheep industry. So I wanted to have a couple slides just to kind of give you an idea of where we've been, where we're going, and where we think we need to go. So this first slide indicates we had a draft rollout plan in September. It really started last January, a year and a half ago, close now, where we put a steering committee together, brainstormed on what we think might work, and then we moved forward during the year and did some rollouts to key stakeholders in September. Then we met face-to-face to develop bylaws, and then we rolled this out at the convention in January. In December, we worked on both a 5-year and a 1-year hard funding budgets for this. We incorporated those bylaws in our articles, and then since the convention, we've started with this membership drive that I mentioned before. And then our goal is to have, we've had our first board meeting, a Zoom meeting of the official board of directors for Sheep Genetics USA. And then the big thing we've done in the last month is really put some names around those action leads. So that puts us in a position where we're ready to move forward. Now that we have these action leads, we can organize those committees, start developing research, look at existing research, and move forward. So I won't go through individually here, but this is kind of what we see as we move forward in this next year for Sheep Genetics USA. And one of the big things that we'll do and we're looking forward to is planning a genetics symposium for 2022 in the summertime. And we'll try to keep everybody in the loop. The whole idea of this is a communication mechanism, so we'll try to utilize that as well. So in summary, we're really trying to connect and assist U.S. sheep producers adopt genetic information, technology, and other research in their production systems, based upon our stakeholder priorities, and create and oversee those projects that are really vital to the advancement of the U.S. sheep industry. Advanced development of genetics resulting in high-value lamb and wool products with high consumer demand. We're looking at the entire pipeline from the ALB consumer side all the way down to the seed stocks. And assist in moving the U.S. sheep industry to a really strong, independent, self-reliant industry that provides producers with increasing profit potential to sustainable production systems. As Tom mentioned, the sheep industry will never be any better than our genetics, but by continuing to accelerate genetic research and adoption, we really feel like this structure gives us the power to unite and empower our industry. And so we're really excited about it. And we're excited about the 150, 160 of you that are on tonight, and the 100 or so we have in membership already. So with that, I'll maybe turn the screen over to Jay again.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everybody on, and I'll go ahead and turn it maybe over to Rusty, and maybe Jay wants to introduce Rusty as well.
Yeah, Russ. I should mention that all these guys are board members, right? And Brad Boner was on. He's the current vice president of ASI, but he was struggling with a bad internet connection, so I'll apologize for him not being able to.
I'm on by phone, Jay.
Okay, we'll come to you then here in a moment. But let's start with Rusty, since we set him up for this. Rusty Burgett is current program director for the National Sheep Improvement Program, which is kind of pivotal to some of this stuff. So Rusty, you want to say a few words from out in Iowa there?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Jay, and thanks to everyone for coming. Ben and Tom did a great job of laying down the foundation to what Sheep Genetics USA is all about. The main point that I would really like to kind of drive home here is that Sheep Genetics USA is a solutions-based organization. That's at the heart of everything that we're trying to do, is to develop solutions for everyday problems and to make sure that we're at an efficient and a profitable standpoint for that sheep of the future, as Tom challenged you with earlier on here this evening. I don't know what that sheep is going to look like in 2031, but I can guarantee you that efficiency is going to be a key to the success of the industry at that time point. There's going to be a lot of hurdles that we are going to have to overcome in the near term as well, with $7 corn on the horizon and potential increases in labor costs and all of our input costs increasing. Efficiency is going to be at the key to success of our industry from all aspects of our industry. And that starts off with genetics. One thing I've kind of noticed over the last several years working with NSIP is that I engage with the seed stock industry on a daily basis and engage with the commercial industry quite a bit. And one thing that I've noticed is that oftentimes it's difficult for us to have information flow from the different segments of our industry. It's no fault of anyone. That's just kind of how things have been, is that it's difficult to get information to flow from one segment to the other. And I think that Sheep Genetics USA provides that platform that we can have an industry-wide systematic approach to moving everyone forward. Everyone has a seat at the table, that we can all work together, how it's not just the seed stock industry making decisions or the feeders or the packers or anyone in between. It's everyone working together collaboratively to move forward as a whole, and that we will be collectively better together than we would individually. And I think that efficiency is just going to be absolutely key, and that starts off with our genetic progress. And we know that there are current issues that we're going to have to try to figure out to solve. I know the last ASI convention we had in person with the end of it was the last Let's Grow meeting. We came up with a list of about 20 different projects that we still wanted to get done to solve near-term solutions. And that's not even realizing all of the potential solutions we're going to need to figure out to have that successful, efficient, profitable sheep industry in 2031. I think the only way to do that is starting off with a good, solid genetic foundation. And the best way to do that is through a collaborative industry-wide approach.
Good. Thanks, Rusty, for those words. And Brad, glad you called in, and then we can hear from you. Brad's from Brancher in our central Wyoming and current ASI vice president. So Brad, do you have a few words to say about this Sheep Genetics USA project?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. And I apologize for my internet service. I'm on the road, and I thought I was in a good spot, but obviously I'm not. So I'm joining you by phone. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I would just add, I think Rusty just touched on our ability in this platform to become a clearinghouse for not only future research but also past research, and I think that's something the industry desperately needs. I don't think we always know what's been done or what's going on out there, and I think communication in that area will be greatly helpful to us. Also, I'll just touch on the collaborative effort and how important that is, I think, going forward. I think, first of all, if we can come together as an industry and get behind a smaller number of research projects, and I say that with the belief that our U.S. industry research in the past has been a little disjointed and maybe a little too regional, maybe a little too driven by by economics of universities and not by the industry. I think with this platform of Sheep Genetics USA, we have the chance to drive the research in the direction that we believe is most beneficial to the industry. And I think that collaborative effort is extremely important to that. And what that does is, I think, allows us to access a greater number of funds through all kinds of grant funding that's available out there. If the industry's behind it, I think we have a lot higher opportunity to get those funds and look at bigger projects, more meaningful projects than maybe we've done in the past. Also, I think the collaborative effort allows us to vet these projects very well by the entire industry, allows us to get behind them, and with that comes follow through and commitment, and by not only the industry but the committees and ultimately the Sheep Genetics USA board to get these projects done and seen through to completion, and get that information out to everybody in one place that's easy to get to and everybody can find. So I think those are huge things that this brings all together under one roof and one platform, and I think that's very important going forward to the success of these research projects and the genetics of these sheep. And Rusty's exactly right. Efficiency is key and number one, and we have to get more efficient if we plan on competing worldwide. And we all know that we compete with our products on a worldwide basis, and so hopefully this will get off the ground rapidly, and we can get to work and make our mark on the genetic progress that happens all over the world that we seem to be lacking a little bit. And I hope you can all join us, and we look forward to your input and off these committees. And as Ben said, please go to sheepgeneticsusa.org and sign up, and no cost, no fees. We just mark the committee you want to be involved in, and we look forward to everyone's input on driving the U.S. sheep industry to a better place. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Brad, for those words, and thanks to everybody. The stuff that you had tonight, Tom, I know we wanted to leave plenty of time for questions, and we've had some come in. I don't know if you have any words to say before we get into the questions that have started to flow in.
Not other than you should be able now to perceive what a great team that I've had the privilege of working with this year. These guys are great visionaries in terms of what needs to happen to move us forward in the industry. And so it's just been a wonderful opportunity to work with the rest of our board members. You've met all of them here one way or another here tonight, except Bill Schultz. And Bill's at home watching this and getting ready to celebrate with the questions and comments that he hopefully can submit forward to us here. But anyway, that's what we're after now is input from the audience tonight. We want to hear from you and get your comments and questions. Okay,
well, let's dive into them, and I guess I'll direct them to you, Tom, to begin with, and if you want to just pass them off to somebody else, you can, and however we want to go through this as far as who wants to address them. The first one is came in while Ben was in the middle of his presentation. Ben, it's random thoughts. Australia, New Zealand, and Western Europe have a great history of sheep production. USA sheep production is an afterthought compared to hogs, beef, and dairy production. That's in the US. What can we learn from these other countries is the question.
Yeah, that is a great question. I'll take a quick shot at that one, having been involved and looked at the sheep industry in Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Australia on a limited basis. But the use of technology, the use of data to drive decisions is helpful, but also having a coordinated, unified team to march forward in those countries has been really helpful. Some of those countries have great governmental support, which which we have in a different kind of a way than they do. Some of those have significant funding contributed directly from government for such projects, and we do here too in some fashions, but perhaps on a different way that it's presented to the industry than in some of those countries. But that was my thought. Ben, do you have some input for us, or Brad?
Sure, Tom. I agree that there's sometimes maybe a little more a unified approach, a little more in Australia and New Zealand. But I look at our industry. We are a variable, have a lot of variety within the industry across the U.S. We have in the past, and we will continue to have that in the future. And I don't. That is a liability in some respects, but it's also a positive and something we can build upon, I believe. We've got different targeted grazing projects, different things work well in different parts of the country. The West can have a production system that works one way, while the Midwest has been growing sheep numbers in the past few years because a different production system works there. So even though we have different approaches, I believe our variability can be used as a positive as we move forward too. And I think this structure really gives us the ability to access all of that information and really drive the U.S. sheep industry forward and increase that communication, because we are variable, and sometimes that gets lost when we're talking about our own production systems and not necessarily looking at everybody else's as a whole and looking at the U.S. as a whole.
Rusty,
The only thing I'll add on that is that these other regions have shown us what progress can be made. They've made tremendous progress over a fairly short amount of time that we can learn from. I think our Australian counterparts, for example, an instrumental group that was involved in kind of the transition from fine wool production to prime lamb production and developing the genetic tools that they have available to them now is the Sheep CRC, their Cooperative Research Center, which is very similar to what Sheep Genetics USA is structured based on. So it shows you just the power of collaborating industry-wide and how far you can move that needle for everybody.
good. A follow-up question to that is, what is the goal of packers? Do they want, I should say questions, there's several in this, so bear with me. What is the goal of packers? Do they want a uniform product similar to the hog industry? What does that product look like for sheep? Do we want to produce that product? Does that limit our genetic base? Are there risks in that? And questioner says they're thinking of the spider lamb syndrome in the Suffolk breed. So one of you want to take a stab at that?
Again, I can add my 2 cents up front and certainly turn it over to the others for their input. I see, and as I mentioned in my earlier presentation, there are segments to our industry. There is a traditional lamb market. We have light lamb, hothouse type lambs that have been hot commodities. We have our traditional full-grown lambs that go through our traditional channels. And those different segments, I think, provide both some diversity to our industry, but they also provide a world of opportunity for us to reach all segments of our consumer base. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to work genetically on all of those fronts, because each of those has a different genetic end goal, as I would look at it. And for us to dig into those and find those best, most efficient solutions for producers that want to focus in each of those areas, I think is a golden opportunity for us to march forward immediately.
And I would just add, so we're always looking for feedback mechanisms from the packers all the way down to the seed stock, and that's really when I was on the American Lamb Board, that's always been an approach we've tried to take. How can we get what is needed, what is valued by the packers, by the consumers, and that message relayed down through the industry, and have whether it's a give some incentives to that area for producing the right products that sell, that move. That's how you really make an efficient system. So this whole organization is meant to try to take a stab at addressing some of those communication issues. We had the the lamb grading, automatic lamb grading, and some of those feedback reports that were part of trying to get an issue of what is working for packers and how can we communicate that to the seed stocks and to our genetic base. So this organization is set up to address those. Maybe Brad wants to add a little more on the feeder packer side too.
Yeah, I think, I guess I'm not 100% sure that the packers want cookie cutters. I mean, they want a majority of lambs to be a certain way, but they also have a certain niche to their business model too. That they like to serve those niches as well. So I don't know that they're after a cookie cutter. I think what they, if you talk to a packer, what they're after is efficiency and passing on profitability down the whole chain, because I think if you talk to most of the packers today, they realize that they don't survive without supply, and we don't survive without them. So I think there's lots of places we can work together there to become more efficient and share that profitability up and down the supply chain.
Okay, good. So comment from somebody, they said great vision, great structure. What are some of the specifics that will be addressed? And while you're addressing that, somebody else asked, does Sheep Genetics USA have a plan that people can access?
Most of the plan that has been presented tonight, and along with other things that we have taken under our wing at this point, are on the website. Would encourage you to go there and take a look at those, and then there'll be more information coming forward for the source of that. I'd open it to my fellow panelists to address the rest of that question.
Well, I can, we really set this up as a grassroots effort. So we don't, as a board, we try not to have any preconceived projects or other things that we come forward with that set up this organization in order to move forward. So in that respect, it's really important for us to set those action leads, set our membership, and then vet what's going on in the industry right now. And then also find out what priorities others think that we're not addressing in current research. So we've really set this up to bring those projects forward, and we feel like this type of system will flesh those out. As far as I kind of went over the flow of information and projects, but as we get those action leads set, as we get membership, then we can start putting in these projects and getting some information back from each of these committees. How important is this current research or this project that's been applied for right now to you in your grassroots committee? And then how do you think it relates to the profitability and the importance within the industry?
Thanks, Ben. Rusty, I got a question for you. Somebody said, Rusty mentioned quite a bit about efficiency. Current NSIP EBVs focus on output traits, not efficiency traits per se. Are new EBVs on the horizon? You want to respond to that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And you're very correct. The vast majority of our traits now, they're primarily focused on output traits. I think in the very near future, we need to be looking at those efficiency traits, balancing outputs relative to inputs, whether those are feed inputs, labor inputs, greenhouse gas emission, anything like that, whatever ratios we'd like to look at. Those are definitely traits that we need to develop. In order to develop those traits, we need to have data to work with, which comes from research projects. So I think that's one of my key interests in Sheep Genetics USA is helping to identify what are those efficiencies we need to be researching. Let's put the pieces together to get that research conducted and then get that implemented into the NSIP evaluation. I wish that it was developing an EBV was just as simple as throwing some parameters together, but we really need some data to work with. So that's one of the key strengths to Sheep Genetics USA is empowering that genetic evaluation tool offered through NSIP.
Okay. Comments from any of the others?
Rusty hit it on the head. This, we hope, and we developed this with the idea that Sheep Genetics would make NSIP stronger. NSIP database would be able to focus on what it does well, and Sheep Genetics USA and the research that comes from across the U.S. will just add more value to that NSIP database.
And I think I'll just add real quick, genomics will really help us out with a lot of those traits, a lot of those that are difficult to measure or expensive to measure on farm or on ranch. So genomics will be a kind of a key tool there. We've made a lot of progress as an industry in genomics through Flock 54 and the work of some of our USDA ARS stations and NSIP. But that research is expensive. There have been literally millions of dollars put into those two different products right there, and we need to figure out how to come up with the funding to do that. And I think that's one of the strengths of Sheep Genetics USA is leveraging our existing research dollars we have available as an industry. Our sources have done great work over the last several years. The American Land Board, ASI, Let's Grow, the National Sheep Industry Improvement Center have invested a lot of money into research. But when we're talking genomics, we need several millions of dollars. So we're hoping to leverage those industry dollars into larger scale projects to make these things a reality in our evaluations.
Good. We do have some Canadian producers on, and Tom, somebody asked, are Canadian producers allowed to join and become a member of Sheep Genetics USA?
The more the merrier, and we welcome our friends from north of the border. We welcome your input. We welcome your expertise. It is truly a collaborative organization, and we are excited about the possibilities of joining with others, and I'm talking across the earth, to bring about this desperately needed research, utilizing those research dollars as best we can, acknowledging the research that has been done and incorporating that in. It's all super valuable to us.
Okay, thanks. And some questions came in about the data. Does NSIP have the infrastructure to support the data needs for all this genetic information? And will all the USA genetics always be hosted by the Australians like the NSIP is? Rusty, you want to handle that one first, or Tom? Let's go with Rusty.
The man there, Rusty and Ben.
Sure. Oh, that's what NSIP was founded to do, was to manage data, to efficiently store that data, analyze it, and convert all that data into decision-making tools to the industry. NSIP does have some adaptability so that we can progress as the industry progresses. That's NSIP's core mission. Sheep Genetics USA will help to empower NSIP to fulfill that mission of being that database management tool. As far as our collaboration with our colleagues in Australia in terms of genetic evaluation, my crystal ball is not working right now. I can say that our relationship with Land Plan in Australia has been phenomenal and has allowed NSIP to develop a lot of tools that would not have been possible otherwise. We've developed a great relationship with them over the last several years. They've been helping us out with a lot of research. They're keenly interested in helping us out on the research side of things. I see them as a key asset to our industry moving forward. It's been fun working with international clients because we're all sheep producers, no matter where we are in the United States. All have a lot of similarities in trying to make things better worldwide.
When we look at the platform, this is what we set up. So to bring your issues, if we can make our industry stronger by bringing a certain part of analysis to the U.S., then that's what we bring up through these grassroots committees, and that's where we find out, what is going on, how can we make make things better. And we're always looking to improve. But like Rusty said, we've had a great working relationship, and it's fit our model to this point. As we move forward with different data, different analysis, genomics, maybe our database looks a little different in the future, and something needs to be done. And this is the structure that allows us to put money behind that, and hopefully industry support behind that. So that's really why we set this up, to help us continue to answer those type of questions and make sure we're doing the right thing for U.S. sheep producers.
We had some questions come in on hair sheep, and I'm going to combine a couple of them. One of them is, many programs focus heavy on wool sheep, but what about the hair sheep industry? We often feel like second-class producers. Second person said 26% of the sheep in the U.S. are hair breeds. Does Sheep Genetics USA consider them a true partner in the industry, or is a group of hobby producers? You want to address the concerns of the hair sheep industry and how they fit into this? Tom, you want to go first and then pass it off?
Not really. Being a Rambo 8 producer, that's a bit of a problem. But no, seriously, the hair sheep folks, in some respects, actually lead our industry. If you'll take a look at some things the Katahdin breed has done, it leaves the rest of us in envy of what they're doing. So I honor many of the hair sheep breeds, and certainly those hair sheep producers are a critical part of us moving forward. We will not be collaborative. We will not be united in our industry without the hair sheep on board. Comments from the rest of my team members?
I don't really care what adjective we have in front of that. To me, the important part is that second term, sheep. I don't care if it's fine wool sheep, if it's hair sheep, if it's whatever type of sheep. We're all sheep producers, and in my personal opinion is our industry is too small for an us versus them mentality, that we're all in this together. We're all trying to move forward. NSIP is a great example of that. We have more Katahdin producers than any other breed involved in NSIP. The Katahdin breed is pioneering the way for genome enhanced estimated breeding values right now. So I think we're all in this together, no matter what type of sheep, no matter what market we're trying to hit.
I get back to what I said before. Variability is not a detriment in our industry. We need to use it as a strength, and the hair sheep are an important part of that. So as we move forward, they are definitely an important part of this organization, and we want their voices heard, because it's a growing part of our industry. And as we've seen these last year, there's been a huge demand for some of those type of sheep. So everything has its point, and we want to make sure we're advancing the industry as a whole and listening to everybody that's a part of that industry.
And I guess from my perspective, folks, maybe I'll put my ASI hat on here for a little bit, but from ASI's perspective, Rusty's exactly right. There is no adjective in front of sheep. If we're sheep producers, we're sheep producers, and there's reasons we all raise the breeds we raise. Everybody has their own reasons: environmental, economical, all kinds of different reasons. So I think we need to rapidly dispel this adjective in front of the word sheep, and know that we're all sheep producers. That we all have many, many more things in common than we have that aren't common. And so let's take all those and move forward as sheep producers and make a difference for sheep consumption in the U.S. and across the world.
Thanks, all of you. So somebody else asked about wool versus meat market lamb production, meat production. Do you have an estimate of how much effort will be concentrated on wool production versus market lamb production in a genetics program? So, Tom,
so I could take that if you want, Jay.
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
Sorry. Currently, ASI has the Wool Trust Fund, and much of the research on wool that's ongoing is done through the Wool Trust Fund, and so that will continue that effort. So if we do decide to do something wool-wise, it'll be in collaboration with the Wool Trust Fund. At the moment, we're going to focus on some of the meat traits and the management traits, and let that funding that exists through the Wool Trust Fund to do research on wool.
Good, thanks, Brad. So another one on the other LAMs, it says, will there be support for those of us returning to more sustainable, low input breeds, primitive breeds? And you guys, we had a heritage breed webinar last year, so I know we have several of those folks on. With smaller family operations, 100 to 200 ewes, will genetics work toward improving sustainability, size, manageability of all these other breeds?
One of the terms that we utilize in describing Sheep Genetics USA is technology, and technology applies to all of these classifications of sheep, whether they're heritage breeds or any of the others. The technology that's out there, the data that applies to those specific breeds or that are important to them, certainly those are things that we want to incorporate into Sheep Genetics USA. We want everyone involved. We want this organization to represent all of the producers in the country, and at various projects will obviously they may not obviously zero in. They may or may not, but on specific traits or specific portions or segments of the industry. But across the board, we want everyone involved, including the smaller flocks that have been in existence for years and been a key part of the industry to this point in time. Other thoughts?
Genetics is a management tool in my respect. So not only are you using your technology to understand your breed or your different meat characteristics or your wool characteristics, you're also using it to determine your productivity on a smaller local scale. So some of these technologies that have come through the research can be utilized whether you're a 2,000 head operation or whether you're a 100 head operation. It's really understanding your production level and using the technologies and the genetics as a tool to better improve your individual local flocks and productivity.
Good, thanks, guys.
I'll take the same approach that I always take with NSIP, is that the technology and the data doesn't tell you what type of sheep to be raising. It helps you to raise the type of sheep that you want to raise or to hit the market that you're trying to hit. As Ben mentioned, we provide you the tools that you can select the type of sheep that fits your operation for whatever reason.
Hey, thanks. And just a comment to everybody out there. I really appreciate all the comments coming in. Not all of them are questions, but I'll share all of these comments with the board members. I know that we got some Australian producers on tonight. We have Canadian producers on. We have large producers, small producers. It's really impressive to see the knowledge that we have listening to the webinar tonight. We had a question come in from somebody say, as a small direct market producer, it is hard to know how, where to purchase breeding stock that will yield the best potential meat product without getting sidelined into show-oriented breeding. Is there a genetic genomic test similar to the Ingenuity Beef by Neogen for sheep? That's above my pay grade. Rusty, you understand that?
I do a little bit. I do. There's definitely tools that are available that can help you to select the genetics to hit your specific market, whatever that might be. We currently have those tools available through the National Sheep Improvement Program. We are working on the genomic tools as well. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet genomics tool where you can just take a DNA sample and be done with your genetic selection process. Those genomic tools have to be paired up with production data and run through the genetic evaluation to really be a useful selection tool. So it's unfortunately there's no silver bullets. NSIP is a great tool to help you out with that, and we're continuing to build additional tools as we progress with the research through Sheep Genetics USA here.
And as you look at those tools, the database that Rusty and some of NSIP has put together does allow you to look at throughout the U.S. on people that are involved in NSIP and where those genetics or those different targets that you want to get to can be. So there's a database query that'll allow you, once you find out where you want to be, it'll give you an idea where you can start searching for what sheep might be available to help you reach that.
And I think that point just really drives home the possibilities with Sheep Genetics USA. I mean, I don't want to prejudge where we're going with this, but that's a perfect example of a topic that Sheep Genetics USA may want to take on and tackle and develop, those genomic tests that we can have such a product like the beef industry has. And, we'll go down that road later, but that's an example of what may be able to be done through Sheep Genetics USA.
Good. And listener said that Tom made a great point about foreign import threats and the perception of American lamb versus imported lamb. The question is, where should our future place its emphasis? So where should our future emphasis be to address the threat of imported lamb?
I'll give my opinion: efficiency. Number one, efficiency.
Ben's agreeing with you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we got each individual, because we are variable, because we have different conditions across the U.S. that make different production systems work in different areas. It's important to know what works and measure those areas, and then go out and become more efficient by using the tools that NSIP has developed from the ground up and that Sheep Genetics is going to build upon.
I guess my vision answer to this is that we have multiple segments within our lamb industry in the U.S. and I certainly agree with what my other fellow board members have just stated. But the other point that I would make is that there needs to be uniformity within those segments. For example, when you go into a white tablecloth restaurant and sit down to a lamb dinner, whatever that is, it needs to be top notch every time. There needs to be uniform quality there that started back at the genetic base and went all the way through that preparing that lamb. And so as we are able to improve on that, the consistent taste, the consistent quality within those segments, to me, those are possibilities that will help us be more competitive on an international basis. But I certainly honor those other comments that were made. They are right on.
So I can follow up. Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, Jay, but to get that consistency, we really need supply, and to get more lambs out there, we need efficient producers, and that's how we're going to grow the industry, and that's how we're going to get more sheep available, more consistent pieces on the plate. It all comes back to efficiency and increasing that supply so that those packers can deliver that great product to each table.
Yeah, well, a question came in on the eating experience. Is research on the horizon for EBVs and eating quality?
Rusty, you want
to? I think it almost has to be. It's, as we're talking about efficiency, we need to be efficient at every step of the way, and that's efficiently providing a quality eating experience and having confidence in that. So that's we need these committees together through Sheep Genetics USA to identify what are those eating quality parameters that we need to be looking at, and developing the methods for the most efficient way to do that.
And the Lamb Board has done some great research on different types of eating experience, eating quality, taste type things, and that's the next step, is to put those into EBVs and put those into our NSIP and our genetics and genomic databases. So we're really trying to create that link across that, and including ALB to meet what we need as an industry.
Okay. Some people have asked about NSIP versus Sheep Genetics USA, and I think the I'll summarize the question as basically, will there be a mechanism for non-NSIP producers to engage with this Sheep Genetics USA initiative? Somebody want to address that dynamic? Tom, I'll start with you.
Certainly. We have multiple teams or committees available for enrollment. There is a producer committee. If you don't fit onto the NSIP committee, then that producer committee may be an excellent choice for you. If you're a feeder packer, then there's obviously a home for you there. But we tried, and our goal has been to make this inclusive of every sheep producer in the U.S. and across the world, for that matter. But our goal has been to totally include everyone. There's no one exempt there's not a home here for someone. There is for everyone, and that's been our long-term goal. Any other comments, team?
Yeah, I mean, Tom hit it on the head that this is set up to, it's not driven by NSIP. NSIP had this large task of looking at what research, along with university. It was segmented. What we're doing is bringing that information together and making sure we vet it across all our industries to make sure we're getting the comments. If this isn't the most effective for our industry, then what is? And that's a big part of that grassroots committees, and then a big part of that prioritization process of the action leads.
And that's something I've been trying to address the last couple of years with my role in NSIP, and that's like a common misconception. Fundamentally, NSIP wasn't developed for every sheep producer in the United States. It was really developed for the seed stock industry to be collecting that data, generating estimated breeding values, and then the commercial sector utilizing those genetic tools when they're selecting breeding stock, and they're utilizing those EBVs in those selection decisions to make productivity improvements, which can then be passed down to the packers and to the feeders. So it's not like we're trying to recruit every single sheep producer to enroll in NSIP, but we do want to help to build that genetic evaluation so those tools are available to the entire sheep industry, and that everyone can benefit through the production efficiency and overall sustainability of it.
Okay, well, we're out of time. You guys addressed a lot of great questions, and there's still a few in the inbox, and I'll bundle these up and share them with the board so they can address them as they see fit. Of course, many of them we've already answered, and I have to add another country to our attendance list. We got Ecuador on too, so a lot of interest here tonight, and I appreciate all of our guests here this evening, Tom and Ben and Brad and Rusty. You guys did a great job handling the questions and laying out what's going on here with the Sheep Genetics USA. Tom, do you have any closing words? I had I put your sheepgeneticsusa.org URL in the chat box for people to grab. Anything else to close it out here tonight?
Just a quick thank you and hello to my friends in Ecuador. I spent a lot of time in Ecuador working with the sheep industry there, and it has huge potential, as do many countries across the earth, for global sheep expansion and utilizing these technologies we've been talking about. So again, thanks to everybody for being on board. Special thanks to the team here tonight and to all of those who are involved in Sheep USA or Sheep Genetics USA. We're totally excited and passionate about the future of the sheep industry. We will arrive in 2031 with an effective, efficient sheep industry that will be vibrant and alive. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us. Just a reminder, we want to thank the American Sheep Industry Association for providing the funding for these webinars that we do, and of course pushing forward with the Sheep Genetics USA initiative to help grow the industry into a profitable and successful future. And we really appreciate all the efforts by the producers represented here on the panel, and also the ones that are going to be filling those committees and giving a lot back to the industry. So with that, I'll go ahead and sign off and remind everybody that you will be getting a follow-up email. and link to this recording if you would like to watch it again or share it with your friends. And we really appreciate everybody being here this evening. So with that, good evening.
Thank you, everybody.